People who have lived in dorms, what is your craziest dorm story? NSW. Woke up late one night to hear some commotion in the lounge next to my room. Glance out the window and see a couch go flying off the balcony and crash to pieces on the ground 5 floors below. Then a slurred voice shouted up from the ground, "Don't you freaking throw couches at me, B." I went to an engineering school. I remember 2 guys on our floor got high one time and took a coat hanger, string, magnet, and tape. They succeeded in designing a device which could remove the peephole in a dorm door, and then proceed to unlock it from the inside. Nobody was safe after that. High engineers are productive engineers. A guy down the hall from me had a meat dehydrator and would make his own beef jerky from time to time. After every batch he would go around offering them to everybody on the hall and they were freaking delicious. So good, in fact, that on one particular occasion, when he barged through the bathroom into his suite mate's room, our dorms were set up as 2-room suites joined by bathrooms, and found his suite mate balls deep in a sorority girl. He wasn't told to leave. When he tried to usher himself out to escape the awkward situation, his suite mate stopped thrusting long enough to say, "Actually, I will have a piece on that," and proceeded to pull out so he could walk over and grab some. When he heard the girl scoff behind him, he looked at her and deadpanned, "Oh, I'm sorry, did you want some too?" The visual this story gave me made me laugh harder than I have in a long while. New back in the mid-80s, some guys taped, corked, and screwed the gang shower door shut trying to make a swimming aquarium of some sort. They filled it with about 5 feet of water and 5 or 6 guys climbed in and started swimming when the stall glass broke away from the walls and a couple thousand gallons of water flooded the entire dorm floor. One of my friends was taking a shower when a mysterious voice whispered through the curtain, "Hey, do you want a taco?" He paused a moment to consider, and ultimately answered, "Yes." A hand reached over the curtain and handed him a fully wrapped Taco Bell taco. The Taco Fairy. Couple of hippie friends moved in together. Day 1 they had a plan for the coolest party room. They put up their beds as bunk beds. They put their desks and chairs in the study room. Then they covered the floor with blankets and more blankets. It was layers deep and like a mattress. This room was a constant drum circle. Everyone got high there daily. A friend of one puked in the corner. Both refused to claim responsibility. They just added more blankets. They had a few fights. One involved one P on the other's side of the room where his stuff was. The other retaliated. They added more blankets. Spilled bong water. More blankets. They made a blankets, pizza box, and body fluid lasagna. By spring the whole dorm was raunchy. The guys were used to it and just stayed there. Clean out was the worst because the rot smell was released. They had to use box cutters and take it out in chunks. They made a blankets, pizza box, and body fluid lasagna. That is so satisfyingly yet disgustingly descriptive. The power went out on campus, and people outside the dorms went crazy. People started rioting, streaking, etc. The power was only out for about an hour or 2. It was insane. That happened on St. Patrick's Day at my college. We didn't riot, but we felt a natural inclination to drink all of the beer before it got warm. My freshman year of college, a couple weeks into the year, I overheard a girl call my roommate Hercules mid-coitus. Through the wall several of us heard, "Girl, oh my god, it's like I'm freaking Hercules." Roommate, yeah, I know. Please tell me you called him Hercules for the rest of the year. Due to a mix-up my first year of college, I was placed on a floor with basically all the kids who messed up the housing paperwork. The school forgot to register them. It was a normal dorm, but it was freaking insane most weekends. Most of the problems revolved around this one skinny black kid. I don't remember his name. Unlike most people who are happy drunks or angry drunks, he was a batshit Occam asylum motherfucking nutcase drunk. Most of the time, his insanity was confined to a room. However, one time he escaped. At about 2 AM, my roommate and I hear screaming and yelling coming from the hall. We look out, and this kid is shirtless running up and down the hall with his friends trying to catch him, calm him down. He was punching walls and had this big bleeding gash on his forehead. He wasn't really making any sense, but his friends' wardens were trying to get help restraining him. I mentioned I had some duct tape, and they were like, "We will need a lot of it." I went back to my room to get it, and by then the crazy dude had been forced into his room. I knock on the door to give them the tape, and it opened just enough for a guy inside to grab the tape and shut it. Through the crack, I saw what must have been a previous vain attempt to restrain him. Cause all I saw was this kid on his back, flailing his arms and legs with what must have been 40 feet of duct tape all over the room. Apparently, they literally taped him to his bed in order for him to eventually pass out. I got the roll back the next day, and it was mostly gone. I am pretty sure that kid either dropped out or transferred. I didn't see him around campus after first semester. There were other stories from that floor, but that one definitely takes the cake. Someone on my hall kept punching holes in the wall and tearing out the drywall, wood and occasionally concrete. One time whoever it was went on a rampage and tore out a huge 4 to 5 foot long section of wall. I'm talking 4 to 5 feet long and floor to ceiling height. I went to Columbia University. I was in John Jay dorm my freshman year. It's 15 stories tall if I remember correctly. The important details are 1. It's on 114th Street, about 120 blocks or so north of Lower Manhattan. And 2. Back in the early 2000s there was nothing preventing kids on the top floor from climbing out onto the roof, which is pretty crazy. 2000 seems kind of late for that. Anyway, 9/11 happens about a week into my freshman year. After watching the news for a while on the TV on my floor, I go up to the top floor, where I had met a guy during orientation, and I used his room to climb out on the roof. You could see the towers burning, even from so far uptown. I had a camera, and I took a picture, and then moments after I took the picture, the first tower collapsed. I could hear people from all over the building screaming. Anyway, that's my dorm story. I climbed on the roof and watched the World Trade Center collapse. Also we busted in on a guy while he was having sex with his RA once. Whoa, powerful story. That one really hit home, because I dated in RA. Some girls on my floor, 3rd, left their window open on a freezing winter day with their built-in heater blasting. The heater overheated and exploded, causing that half of the floor to flood with boiling hot water along with all of the rooms under it. There was steam all in the halls and the fire alarm went off. Water was absolutely everywhere. Didn't touch my room so I didn't give a frick and went to class. As in RA, I got a call to the emergency number. There was a situation in the women's bathroom. We got there and on the toilet handle there was what looked to be a piece of vaginal discharge with a single pubic hair on the handle. Then there was the rogue couple, never talked to anyone, just wore bathrobes when they came out of their room, which was only to get food mail. The phantom shitter the dorm I lived in had a basement with a single bathroom that no one really used. Often, when I or my friends from the dorm used the bathroom there would be this insanely large, baby-sized, turd left in the bowl, too massive to be flushed. This occurred throughout the entire year. Everyone wanted to know who it was. My freshman year roommate was this gorgeous, tiny Lithuanian blonde girl. Towards the very end of the year, I went to use our own personal bathroom, and floating in the bowl was this massive crap. I tried to flush it a few times, it didn't work so I started heading out the door to use a public bathroom. On the way out my roommate, who was studying at a desk, looked up red-faced and asked, "It didn't take it," and that is how I discovered the phantom shitter. Not me, but my sister last year had a hectic and sad one. She lived last year in a dorm with another girl in the same room. Girls seemed fine, they got along great and were pretty good roommates. Around first semester exam time, she walks into her dorm to find her roommate dead on her bed. The roommate committed suicide and said in a letter to her, "This is not your fault. I just can't handle school anymore." Sister was traumatized, but continued in with school. Different room now and new roommate. Same dorm style. Only 2 weeks after she finds her new roommate with a knife in her stomach on the floor. This one was stabbed by the roommate's boyfriend who couldn't handle a breakup from her roommate. Luckily the roommate survives. So my sister decides that these types of rooms are not for her and asks to have a single room. Receives single room and my sister can finally relax. But wait, there's more. Nearing the end of her second semester around exam time again, the guy who was living in the room across from her hung himself in the middle of the hallway right in front of his and my sister's door. Needless to say, my sister received complete compensation, received all her dorm living money back for her horrible dorm living first year, and now lives off residence by herself. It does sound a little bit like your sister is a talented serial killer. I can't even imagine having to cope in her situation. Some guys on my floor decided to trap another guy in the bathroom. Our rooms were designed as suites where 2 rooms connect via bathroom and you lock the bathroom door from the bedroom. The guy who was trapped was claustrophobic and got out the only way he could think, by barreling through the walls and into the hallway. I wasn't there when it happened and only saw the aftermath of a huge hole in the wall, but it was pretty wild. This one actually makes me mad. Poor guy must have been so freaked out. I knew a guy who locked himself out of his room on the top 4th floor, went out the bathroom window, tried to walk over to his room, and fell off the roof. He's a paraplegic. All that stuff is pretty impressive for a guy in a wheelchair. Let's see. Freshman year, I, along with some of my dormmates, it was a big suite, got drunk at the room down the hall. One of them got too inebriated and had to be escorted, or dragged, back to our suite so he can go vomit. My other dormmate and I led him to the toilet so he can do his business. While he is heaving, the girlfriend of one of the other dormmates storms in and heads straight to the shower, sobbing. While she is crying, the boyfriend, who is also incredibly drunk, comes in. While he is leaning against the doorframe, he apologizes to his GF. Amanda, I'm sorry. This is all happening while the other dormmate and I are in the bathroom, because we were looking after the other guy who was barfing his guts out. The GF storms out of the shower. I don't want to hear it. I can't believe you. Amanda, I'm sorry. I didn't know. How could you not know? It's a totally different feeling. So me and the other guy are confused at this point. Right away the GF grabs a bottle of mouthwash and starts chugging and gargling. Then she starts brushing her teeth furiously. While this is happening, I ask, with drunken confusion, what's going on? The GF turns to me, with foam all over her mouth. What do you think? How have you not caught on? So I think about it for a bit, and realize, with eyes wide open, I had to stop myself from laughing when she confirmed it. What happened? The BF was so drunk that he peed in his GF's mouth while she was blowing him. She had yellow spots all over her shirt. Oh, I thought he stuck it in the bum hole. Not my story, my dad's. He had a whole chicken in his refrigerator that had gone bad, so he tied a rope to it and stood at the top of the stairs swinging it at people and clucking as they walked up. My dad took a pumpkin to the top of the 7th floor library with his buddies. It was during new student orientation, and when a group walked by that night he screamed, "I can't take it anymore," and threw it down. It splattered all over everyone who thought it was a person that had just jumped. Horrible prank, but drugs were definitely involved, lol. The first night I was living in my dorm, someone got excessively drunk and punched through a small peephole glass window in a metal door. The main problem was that this was wire reinforced glass, and the shards were held in place to shred his arm upon removal. There was much blood. I may be buried, but I finally have a relevant story. I was coming back from a drunken night my sophomore year. I decided to take a killer crap before going to bed and sleeping the idiocy of the night off. I figured that I'd treat myself and go to the handicapped stall because when you're drunk, space is wonderful. So I'm minding my own business and I hear the clacking of high heels on the tile floor. I hear 2 voices whispering frantically, "Crap, the big one's taken. Let's go here." I look over and see a pair of heels and a pair of sneakers and a zipper undo. I think y'all can imagine what happened next. In between the moaning and sighing, I can't help but let out drunk farts and whatnot. To her credit, she never stopped. Anyways, I finish my business, wash my hands and leave. I got into bed realizing that I had forgotten to brush my teeth. I grab my gear and go back in. As I turned the sink on, I saw the couple walk out of the stall together. I nodded and waved and they went about their day. I saw that girl everywhere until I graduated. Dang. Drunk but remembered to brush your teeth. Impressive. I had my share of crazy dormmates, but my dad's story takes the cake. 1960s and my dad had 3 other roommates. One of them got a bottle of bourbon from his dad's cabinet and snuck it into the dorm. At the time, it was customary for RAs to do nightly rounds to all the rooms to make sure everyone was safe and sound inside their own room at 10 p.m. My dad and the other 2 roommates decided to pretend to be the RA and knock while the 4th guy was showing off his prize to some other helmets. He panicked, not thinking. He threw the glass bottle under the bed, which had metal wire holding the mattress up. The bottle shattered, filling the entire room with the smell of alcohol. Everyone panicked. Luckily, it was right before Christmas break. My dad had the idea of getting a few Christmas trees to cover up the smell. A few minutes after they had shuffled the trees in, the RA shows up. He sees the trees and thinks that the 4 boys have come up with the best plan ever. Competitive Christmas tree decoration contests. Of course they all went along with it and it became a campus-wide event and was continued for at least a few years. All because my dad wanted to prank his roommate. That's a really anti-alcohol dorm man. Freshman year, myself and a handful of other people were in this guy's room, drinking. His RA knocks on the door. We shove the booze under some blankets. The RA is super stoned and asks if he should put on sunglasses before anyone else sees him. We told him to shower and change because he smelled like he'd just been in a weed sauna. He says thanks, takes a Tupperware container out of his backpack and hands it to the guy who lived in the room. He said, "Sorry, they're just normal brownies, but I don't want to eat them all right now. So, eat them for me." Then he walked back to his room. We continued to get drunk and eat brownies. Sophomore year, I lived with a girl who was legitimately crazy. The dumbest thing she did was tell our RA that I had booze in our room. I didn't. She did. She got written up. I got her talking too. The worst she did was have sex while I was in the room. The craziest was when she turned off every light in the room including my desk light and left to shower. I didn't turn the lights back on. When she returned, she threw a tantrum about how all of the lights were off. My roommate decided he didn't want to go to college anymore and thus stopped going to class. He went out drinking every night until he blacked out, and then he would come back to the dorm room and challenge me to some stupid freaking fight. One night he punched me in the face because I was watching TV, and he wanted to watch a different channel. I didn't say anything because I was 17. It was my first month of college, and I wanted to prove I was a man who did not need help. I basically lived like an abuse victim for 2 months. I would cringe when he got home, wondering what would set him off, and why he'd try to fight me today. In October he called his parents and told them he was dropping out, and they told him no, and that he would need to finish the semester. He responded by smashing literally everything he owned into bits. Cell phone thrown against the wall, Guitar Hero controllers smashed repeatedly into the ground, punched a hole through the TV, drop-kicked his printer scanner. Total freaking freak out. Then he realized what he'd done and started chugging laundry detergent and whatever pills he could find to try to kill himself. I ran and got the RA at this point, and they called the police. He was taken away and kept for a psych evaluation. Shittiest 18th birthday ever. On the plus side, his parents came to pick him up and he left college immediately. I stole one of his pillows as a sort of frick you, and I sleep with that pillow firmly planted up against my grundle every single night. Frick you, Craig. I had a friend who lived on a sub-free hall in the same dorm building as me. Although he lived on this sub-free hall, he started drinking about 2 weeks into the school year. When he'd come home drunk, he'd be scared to run into his RA, so he'd sleep on the floor of my room. It got to the point where I had a bottle of water, a bucket of pretzels, and an air mattress, pillow, and blanket waiting there because this happened so frequently. One night, he came back a little more drunk than usual. I find him in my room when I come back from hanging out with people. He's laying on the floor on his back, snacking on pretzels and being just generally silly. Then I see his hand fall into his pants. It's there longer than it should be, and I just asked, "What are you doing?" He continued to play with himself, so I left the room for a couple minutes, just to clear my head because I could not believe what was happening. I come back a few minutes later, and just shout, "What the frick are you doing?" That's when he gives me the creepiest, happiest, just finished smile I've ever seen. Then he fell asleep. When he woke up the next morning, I asked him if he remembered the previous night. He had no recollection whatsoever. I told him what I had seen. He buried his face in his pillow. A few seconds later responded, "I need to go to church," and left. TLDR. Friend gets drunk, masturbates on the floor of my room, goes to church because he's embarrassed the next morning. I am so glad I never lived in a substance-free dorm. These two brother and sister ginger twins lived in my dorm. Both pale, overweight with straggly hair. Some of us were sitting on the sofas in the lobby, chatting away and planning where to hold our 420 session later that day. An ambulance pulls up. Emergency workers rush into the building with the gurney, head straight to the elevators. Everyone is wondering what is going on, and clearly worried. 10 minutes later the emergency crew come out of the elevator. Ginger sister is lying on the gurney yelling in pain, face red and covered in sweat. Ginger brother is by her side running along with the EMT team, also sweating, red-faced, and clearly panicked. As they turn the corner and head towards the exit, we can now see the problem. Ginger boy managed to get his whole fist up his sister, but couldn't get it out. We never saw them again. Not mine story, but my friend came up to me looking rather pee and I asked her what's up. She states that her roommate is pregnant. I was like, well, that sucks. She looks me and with the most annoyed face says, "I was there when it was conceived. They have bunk beds." I lived in a suite, which was 3 rooms with 2 guys in each room, then a shared living room. 2 of my suite mates, let's call them Mike and John, go out for a night of drinking. Mike and John bring home 2 girls and start hooking up with them in their room. Halfway through having sex with these girls, the girls decide to switch guys. Mike and John don't stop it, so they switch and finish fricking the other guy's girl. That was a pretty crazy next day to hear about that. This reminds me of the episode of The Office where Michael is reminiscing about the good times with Todd Packer and recalls a time that they met twins at a bar. Packer fricked them both. The P-Puck lived in the freshman football dorm. The doors in my dorm were all directly across the hallway from each other. There were some dudes a couple of slots down the hall from me that liked to play music too loud and just generally be rude and disrespectful. RR was a big P who was too passive to really do much about it. One night their neighbor across the hall got tired of their crap. He took an empty pizza box, pee in it, and put it in the freezer. Then late at night when everyone was asleep, he took the frozen block of pee, hereafter known as the P-Puck, out of the pizza box, set it on the floor of his room, and slid it across the hall into the butthole's locked dorm room. My understanding is both of them refused to clean it up, each believing the other was responsible for the pee puddle in the middle of the room they woke up to. Relations between the two soured. Surprise, surprise. Dude across the hall was never suspected. Heard the story after finals. Still my favorite story from college. I don't believe the pizza box part used to form the puck. I've never seen a watertight pizza box. I am familiar with the P-Puck though. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.